Being an educator is one heck of a lonely journey, but every step holds a story, an experience that shapes how we teach, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Educator Experience. I'm your host, Salli Carter, and together we'll explore the moments that define us as educators. Through authentic conversations and shared experiences, we're building a community that connects, reflects, and inspires, all while breaking down barriers in education, one story at a time. You are not alone. Let's grow together.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Educator Experience podcast. My name is Salli Carter. I'm the host of this show, and today is a very special episode because we are celebrating 1 full year on the air. 1 year of conversations, 1 year of connection, 1 year of learning, and 1 year of building a community around the stories that so often go untold in education. A year ago, I hit record on the very first episode without really knowing where this journey would lead. What started as a simple idea, a desire to create a space where educators could share their experiences and learn from one another, has grown into something far more meaningful than I ever could have imagined. Now, over the past year, we've welcomed more than 40 guests from around the world, representing over 35 institutions. We've had listeners tune in from more than 35 countries. And together, we've explored everything from teaching and leadership to entrepreneurship, innovation, artificial intelligence, and personal growth. But if I'm being honest, the numbers aren't even what I'm most proud of. What I'm most proud of is the opportunity that we've had to connect as human beings. Behind every title, every credential, every classroom, office, and every institution is a person navigating challenges, celebrating successes, learning lessons, and simply trying to make a difference. This podcast has reminded me time and time again that while our roles may differ, many of our experiences are remarkably similar. To every guest who's joined me this year and shared a piece of themselves with the purest of intentions to help others, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your willingness to be vulnerable, honest, and generous with your experiences has created conversations that has resonated with educators around the world. It has been one of the greatest privileges of my professional life to hold space for these stories. And I would be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity to thank my incredible teammate, Madison Thurgood. Because behind every episode, every post, every graphic, every upload, and every behind the scenes detail is someone helping to make it all happen. Madison, thank you for your creativity, dedication, and unwavering support. This podcast simply would not have existed without you. So, as we wrap up this season and head into the summer months, we'll be taking a short pause before returning in the fall with new conversations and stories, but some exciting developments that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. Over the summer, we'll be launching our AI for Educators course series, practical and engaging asynchronous courses designed to help educators build confidence with AI, navigate both the opportunities and challenges it presents, and explore meaningful ways to integrate these tools into your teaching practice. We'll also continue sharing our education reflection journal, which has received incredible feedback from educators across the country. The journal was born from a simple realization. Some of our most important professional learning happens in the everyday moments that we quickly forget. The lesson that worked, the student conversation that changed our perspective, the activity that completely flopped, the challenge that we finally figured out. Or how about the insight that arrived when we least expected it? Because if we don't capture these moments, they often disappear. And that realization brings me to today's topic, which is all about reflection. Now, I'll be honest, every year I tell myself around this time of year that I'm going to take a proper break over the summer. Salli, it is your year. Take a dang break. But every year, within a few days, I find myself opening a course outline. It might be listening to a podcast, scribbling ideas into a notebook, or thinking about what I'm going to be doing differently or that I want to do differently in the fall. And maybe you're the same way. Some of us finish the academic year completely wiped out and exhausted, whereas some of us feel energized and accomplished. Some of us are already mentally redesigning our courses before we've even had a chance to celebrate making it through another year. And if you're anything like the educators I've been talking to lately, you're probably somewhere in between. Now, over the past few weeks, I've had countless conversations with colleagues about how they plan to spend their summers. Some are intentionally disconnecting and focusing on rest. Others are diving into research projects, curriculum development, conferences, that's a big one, professional development opportunities, or new creative pursuits. And honestly, there's no right way to spend the summer. But after facilitating several workshops recently on reflective practice, I've been thinking a lot about how this time of year presents a unique opportunity for us educators. The semester is over. The deadlines have slowed down. The grading is hopefully behind us. Might be a little bit behind with that. I've been known to submit something late every once in a while. And for the first time in months, many of us have enough breathing room to ask ourselves some important questions. What worked well this year? What didn't? What surprised me? What challenged me? What did I learn? And perhaps most importantly, what do I want to carry forward into the next academic year? Because if there's one thing I've learned throughout my career, it's this. Experience alone doesn't automatically lead to growth. We can teach the same course for 10 years and repeat the same mistakes. Or we can teach that same course for 10 years and continuously evolve because we're learning from our experiences along the way. Reflection is what transforms experience into learning. I'll say that again. Reflection is what transforms experience into learning. It's the bridge between what happened and what happens next. And that's why I believe reflective practice is one of the most powerful professional development tools available to us educators. It's not complicated. And what it is intentional. It's the practice of stepping back long enough to understand what happened, why it happened, and what we want to do next. One of the reasons I care so much and so deeply about reflective practice is because some of my personal biggest moments as an educator came after the class was over. I still remember a class years ago where I thought I had absolutely nailed the lesson. Students were engaged. People were asking questions. The energy in the room felt incredible. And I remember walking out of that class thinking, wow, that went really well. I nailed it. Then I looked at the assignment submissions, and it became painfully clear that many of the students had completely misunderstood the one concept I was trying to teach. And at first, I was kind of confused. How could students seem so engaged and still miss the point? But that experience taught me something important. Engagement and learning are not always the same thing. Sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't. And I probably wouldn't have learned that lesson if I hadn't taken the time to reflect on what happened. And that's the power of reflection. Instead of saying students seemed disengaged, reflection asks what contributed to that. Instead of saying that activity was successful, reflection asks what specifically made it successful and how can I replicate it in the future? Reflection encourages us to become investigators of our own practice, not critics, not judges, but investigators. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is understanding here. So what does reflective practice actually look like? The good news is that it doesn't require a complicated framework by any stretch of the imagination. It does not require hours of our time. And it certainly doesn't require writing pages and pages in our journal every single day. It can be as simple as setting aside 30 minutes and asking yourself some thoughtful questions. What were my biggest teaching successes this year? When did I see students most engaged? What activities generated the strongest learning? What moments made me feel most proud as an educator? One of the best pieces of advice I ever received from a mentor was this. Don't just reflect on what went wrong. Reflect on what went right. Because as educators, we're often really good at identifying problems, but we're much less likely to pause and examine our successes. But understanding why something worked is just as valuable as understanding why something didn't, because those are the practices that we want to carry forward. We can also ask ourselves things like, what challenged me this year? What situations drained my energy? What concepts did students consistently struggle with? What feedback was difficult to hear? These questions aren't about dwelling on negatives, they're about identifying opportunities for growth. Because every challenge contains information, every frustration tells us something, and every obstacle can become a learning opportunity if we're willing to examine it. Another powerful area for reflection is our students themselves. Think about a student who stood out this year, who thrived, who struggled, maybe who surprised you. What did you learn about today's learners? What assumptions were challenged? What approaches seem to resonate most strongly? One thing I've learned throughout my career is that while I may teach the same course multiple times, I am never teaching the same students. Students change, technology changes, society changes, and the realities our learners are facing continue to evolve. Reflective practice helps us adapt alongside those changes rather than relying on assumptions that may no longer be true. And let's be honest, the emergence of AI has accelerated those changes dramatically. Many of our students are learning, studying, writing, and problem solving in ways that didn't even exist a few years ago. The students sitting in our classroom today are different than the students we taught even maybe last year. And reflection really helps us make sense of those shifts. So now let's talk about one of everyone's absolute favorite topics, student evaluations, or perhaps not so favorite topic. But even after years of teaching, there's still a moment when, those evaluations arrive and I feel a little bit nervous. You know that feeling, the moment before you open them, that moment that you're hoping students saw the effort, care, and intention behind everything that you tried to do. And then some comments feel validating, some might be frustrating, and some are often contradictory as well. And then there are definitely the ones that make you question every life decision that brought you to this profession. The challenge here is learning how to engage with that feedback thoughtfully, not defensively and not blindly. And also keep in mind, not every comment deserves equal weight. Not every suggestion requires a complete course redesign. But oftentimes, hidden within the student feedback are valuable insights. We want to look for patterns here. Are multiple students mentioning the same issue? Are there reoccurring themes around communication or clarity, engagement, or workload? Are there strengths that students consistently highlight? The goal isn't to please everyone because that is impossible. The goal is to identify useful information that can improve the learning experience. Sometimes feedback can confirm what we already suspected, but sometimes it reveals blind spots as well. And occasionally, it can challenge us to see our teaching from an entirely different perspective. Once you've reflected on your experiences, successes, challenges, and feedback, the next step is turning those insights into action. Because reflection without action is simply observation, and growth happens when reflection leads to change. That doesn't mean creating 20 goals for next year or 50, or in my case, like 800. I'm a bit weird like that. But instead, choose one or two meaningful areas to focus on. Maybe you want to improve student engagement. Maybe you want to redesign an assessment or two. Maybe you want to strengthen your facilitation skills. Maybe you want to learn more about AI and its implications for teaching. Or maybe you simply want to create healthier boundaries and protect your own well-being. Whatever it is, I invite you to start small. The most sustainable growth often comes from small, intentional changes over time. And there's a benefit to reflective practice that often gets overlooked. Your notes, observations, and reflections that you capture throughout the year become incredibly valuable when future opportunities arise. So, for example, updating your CV, applying for a new position, preparing a tenure package. How about if you're seeking a promotion or interviewing for a leadership role? Trying to remember everything that you've accomplished over the past several years can be surprisingly difficult. For me, it all turns into mush. Your reflections become evidence of your growth. They help you remember the course redesign that improved student engagement, the strategy you experimented with, the challenge you navigated, the committee work you contributed to. a professional development experience that changed your perspective. When we document our growth, it happens. We're not relying on memories years later. We have a record of our learning, our impact, and our evolution. And trust me, your future self will thank you. And perhaps the biggest message that I want to leave everyone with today is this. Reflective practice isn't about criticizing ourselves. It's not about finding everything that went wrong. And it's simply not about trying to become a perfect educator, because Lord knows that's impossible. But reflective practice is about curiosity. It's about stepping back long enough to notice what worked, what didn't, how we've changed, and how we've grown, and to notice where we might want to go next. As we close this episode, I'd like to leave you with one final reflection. Think back to the educator you were in September. So just even less than a year ago. Now think about the educator you are today. You are not the same person. You've learned something, you've adapted, you've overcome challenges, and you've supported students. And most of all, you've grown. And somewhere along the way, you've become a better educator because of it. The danger is that we move so quickly through the semester, the next project, the next course, or the next responsibility that we never stop long enough to recognize really how far that we've come at the end of the day. So before you begin planning for the future, take a moment to acknowledge the journey you've already taken. Celebrate what worked. Learn from what didn't. Capture the lessons before they fade. And give yourself credit for the difference that you've made as well. Because education isn't built through a single lesson, a single semester, or even a single year. It's built through thousands of small moments that often go unnoticed, but matter deeply. So thank you for being a part of this journey. Thank you for listening. Thank you for learning, sharing, reflecting, and growing alongside me. I hope your summer brings you rest, joy, inspiration, and the space to reconnect with the things that matter most. And when the fall arrives, I hope you return not only refreshed, but with a deeper appreciation for the educator that you've become. Until next time, enjoy yourselves, take care of each other, enjoy your summer, and don't forget to make space to reflect. We'll see you in the fall.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Educator Experience. We hope you're walking away feeling connected, inspired, and just a little bit more supported on your journey. Ready to go a little bit deeper? Join the Educator Experiences community and check out our courses and workshops specifically designed to support new educators as they navigate the ups, downs, and everything in between. You'll find it all at educatorexperiences.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a fellow educator, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we're building a vibrant community rooted in support and connection. See y'all next Monday.